Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to do this beautiful autumnal still life using a tomato that I grew in my own garden and also some mini tomatoes and an eggplant I picked up at a farm stand. And we're starting off on a piece of mat board that I have prepped with Liquitex clear gesso. I really love that gesso because it gives a nice grit that's perfect for colored pencils or pastels. I'm sketching right with my pastels, and don't worry, we will fix the issue with that berry box later on in the video. If you would like a real-time version of this tutorial, you can find it up now in Critique Club. Critique Club gives you access to over 150 real-time tutorials with a variety of media. So if you're like me and you love to use different types of products on your art, you will love Critique Club. There's also monthly art prompts that if you can use if you're not feeling very inspired, and I post 2 new tutorials every single month. But I think the best part about Critique Club is that you can upload your work for feedback from me. So if that sounds interesting, check out the link in the video description and learn more, or sign up today. I'd love to have you in the club. I'm blocking in color now. I'm trying to get the fabric there. I have this actually set up right next to me on my table so I can look right over to it, which is really nice. I highly recommend that you set up your own still lifes from time to time and sketch from life, because you're going to get the best information, because you can actually pick up something and look at it closer if you're not sure how it really looks versus working with a flat photo. The other nice thing is it really helps you hone your skills on taking something that's 3-dimensional, such as a still life sitting in front of you, and recording it onto a 2-dimensional piece of paper versus taking a photo that's already 2-dimensional and recreating it on a 2-dimensional piece of paper. It's really good for your studying. I have a dish with a paper towel in it that I'm resting my pastels as I'm using them. That way, if I know I used an indigo or a teal, I can pick up that exact same color that I've already used. Now, what I have my pastels in are some drawers by Meeden. They're just kind of, I have 3 drawers situated around me, one with warm colors, one with cool colors, and one with neutrals. I actually have 9 drawers full of pastels, but yesterday I went through my stash and I picked out, because I have a lot of doubles of colors, and I made myself kind of like a travel palette, basically. I made myself, I would say a limited palette, but it's not really limited because I have like broken pieces. I have a small sampling of all my colors, basically, in those 3 trays, so I can keep them on my desk and it's not overwhelming. Because when I have all my 9 trays out, I have so many double colors, it's just overwhelming because I have so much there. This allows me to have a great selection in a small amount of space. So if you're like me and you have lots of boxes of pastels, I highly recommend you make yourself a little limited palette that you can work from and not be overwhelmed. I am doing some blending with my pastels here. Like, I laid down a bunch of different shades of purple. The eggplant almost looks black. It's so dark. So I really wanted to pull out those undertones and get a little more color there in the eggplant. And here I was just kind of playing with some highlights that I'm going to blend out because they're way too bright and shiny. The only really shiny highlights would be on the tomato. They have a more reflective skin, and even they're not super duper sparkly shiny. So a lot of these initial layers are me kind of getting a feel for how I want the surfaces and textures to look. And this took me about 1 hour and 45 minutes. Just for some context, you have the full narrated tutorial in Critique Club if you want to paint along with me and hear my thoughts as we're going through this. But yeah, you know, I'm working flat here and I'm not even noticing the fact that that berry box is so out of whack at this point. So one thing that helps is taking a break when I think I'm about 85% done and putting it on an easel and stepping back, because that's when you'll see the problems. I find that when I work flat, that can happen. It's less likely to happen when I'm working at an easel because I can back up and look at it straight on. But when I'm working at a table, you're looking kind of askew at your paper, and it's really easy for things to go a little wonky. So if you find that happens to you, maybe consider working on an easel or just propping up your painting from time to time and looking at it straight on. I find that if I look up in my monitor, because I film overhead, I can see those issues. But if I find that I'm really into my painting and I'm not looking up at my monitor very much, which was the case, then I find that I will get some perspective issues. But luckily, pastels are opaque and they're very forgiving, and you can rework things as needed. And basically, I'm having fun here. So you may think, you may be wondering, Lindsay, why are you working on such a bright red mat board or paper? And basically it's because I really love working on gessoed mat board. So I do my own picture framing, and I have a whole bin of like scraps. And this would have been like the middle of a 16 by 20 painting, and I just throw the scraps in a bin. And if I can get another mat out of it, like I have something smaller to mat, I'll use it. But every once in a while, the bin gets too full, so I take them all out and I just give them a coat of Liquitex clear gesso. And it's got to be the Liquitex brand because that has a really wonderful grit to it. I've tried some like cheaper brands and they just don't have the grit. And I just go and prime a bunch of panels all at once, and then I, have them to work from. But I haven't done this in probably a couple of years, so I was getting down to the last few, and I wanted to work at about a 9x12 size, and this was the only color I had, so I figured, well, you know what, I've got a red tomato there. I think that'll work. And so I decided to kind of take advantage of that and give it a really rough edge, so I'd have that edge as a kind of a frame. Whether it'll be shown if I mat it and frame it, in the future, I don't know, but I thought it'd be kind of pretty to use. But honestly, I was really hoping to have kind of a tan or a sandy taupe color, but I didn't have one prepared that color. So if you had, say, a sheet of pastel paper that was that color, go ahead and use that. You really can, you're going to figure out what you like the best. Now, one thing I will mention, if you watched a recent tutorial on my YouTube channel that was real time, we did a quick sketch on velour paper. And if you compare the look of the velour paper to the painting I'm doing on the mat board, you're going to notice the velour paper has much of a blurrier, softer look because of the texture of the paper and all those little hairs on the paper. I get a really crisp effect on this paper because it's got a really crisp surface, so depending on what you want the effect to be will determine what you choose for paper. Like if I was doing a portrait, the velour paper is so flattering for a portrait because of that soft look. If I want something that were maybe like an architectural study or something where I want a more crisp in focus look, choosing a crispy like a sandpaper or something like that where it has a nice bite that will really grab the pastel will give me more detail and more look like that. I also can work quite quickly on velour paper because there's only so much you can layer up. I can't really go in with the pencils and get more detail with it because it just won't really, the pencils don't bite in the paper very well. But with this gessoed surface, I am able to really get some crisp detail and layer up. Now you probably see that I've got some tape there. The tape on the corners did nothing to hold that mat board in place, so I actually just rolled a piece of tape and stuck it to my table, and that kept it basically from wiggling around while I'm working. Because the mat board will bow a little bit when you prime it, you probably want to prime it both sides so it evens out, but I get kind of stingy with my Liquitex clear gesso, so sometimes I'll prime the back with just some Mod Podge or whatever, and I'll do the front with a clear gesso, so I conserve that a bit. I do find probably the most economical way to buy the Liquitex clear gesso is in the 32-ounce bottle. It's not so much that it'll go bad or dry out before you can use it, but it gives you the best bang for your buck. So I would recommend getting an 8 or 16 ounce or 32 ounce if you're considering purchasing this product. And you can always, prime a bunch of boards and just let them be. You can also use this on a primed panel, like a wooden panel, for use with oil pastels over it. So it's just a really great surface. I also like it for a colored pencil, and you could use it on paper too if you want. Now, I think the most versatile way to get the most out of your supplies is to store them together. So keep your hard pastels and soft pastels together. So you can use them in the same painting. Same goes for pastel pencils. I kind of wish I didn't outline this with that orange. It was really tough to cover up as I needed that darker color towards the bottom of the tomato. But I needed to pull it away from the background, and I thought that would be the best way to do it. But your hard pastels are going to be great for those lower layers because they don't fill the tooth, and you can layer the softer pastels on top. The hard pastels are also really nice for going in and adding details later on. Same with pastel pencils. I find the hard pastels will put down more pastel than a pastel pencil, and my preference for hard pastels are the new pastels by Prismacolor. You used to be able to buy them open stock, but now they only offer them in sets, sadly. So I would recommend them. You might find some independent art stores that still have them open stock, but Prismacolor's done some kind of they've made some choices recently where the only open stock products they're offering now are their premier pencils. Everything else from markers to pastels are only in sets, which I think is really a bummer because you might not necessarily need all those colors. So, but I will say the hard pastels wear down so slowly that if you bought the full set that they offer, which I think is, I think it's 48 or maybe 60. You're not unlikely to run out of them anytime soon. And the colors you probably will run low on would be like your black and white and your more basic colors that you can get in a smaller set anyway. And they're not very expensive, so I wouldn't stress about it too much. And I'm sure there's other brands of harder pastels. Probably the Pit Pastel is also a hard pastel. I haven't used it, so I can't say for sure. But, there are other options out there. It's just, boy, I really like that, and it's a bummer that they're not available open stock. I'm using a little eyeshadow applicator for some blending there, mainly because my pastel tools, like my soft tools, were in the other room and I didn't have them handy, and that works just fine. Honestly, they work great, and you can get like 120 for about $7 on Amazon, so I really can't complain. They're kind of a good deal, and I find they don't dry out as quickly as the soft tool covers, so take that for what it's worth. I definitely like that makeup applicators much more than the generic soft tool applicators, so I would recommend go with the real soft tool applicators or go with the generic makeup applicators. But the generic sponge applicators that are sold for like a pan pastel dupe, they're not very good. So now I want to spray this with fixative because I got to the point where the tooth was full and I realized I had some issues. Biggest issue here was that berry box. I had the back corner way too high and I needed to correct that ASAP because I couldn't unsee it. Once I could see that there was a problem there, I couldn't unsee it. And so what I'm doing there, holding my pencil, I'm actually holding it up to my still life and trying to bring those angles over and figure out where I am off. Now, of course, where I'm sitting, I thought I took my photo pretty much from the vantage point where I was sitting, but I think I'm actually looking down on it a little bit more. So I do have a very open berry box there, but I am kind of squashing down that back corner so that it is a little bit better in perspective. And because I did spray the fixative, it's not like I am going to be erasing the box. It's more I'm layering up over it because the pastels are opaque. So the fixative I like to use is the Krylon workable fixative. It is very affordable. I think it's under $10 in most stores. You can order it online, but any craft department in a department store should have it. It's really great. It's great. You really can't beat it for the price. It's not a final fixative, but I have used it at the end of a painting and then just kind of redone my highlights, and it's worked quite well. So yeah, you can't beat it. It's almost as cheap as hairspray. So for that fact, I would just say have a can of it. Hairspray will work, but I know the keyboard warriors are going to come at me for saying that because hairspray does contain other things besides just the setting ingredient. It's got silicones, it's got conditioner. So if you are going to use hairspray, get the cheapest you can find because it won't have the silicones and the more nourishing, hydrating materials that a higher quality hairspray will have. So get the Krylon workable, which is, $6 to $10 a can, or get cheap hairspray. And I still wouldn't vouch for cheap hairspray being archival. So I would just say, do what you got to do. I'm not going to judge. People, please don't judge in the comments because I don't. I've given the disclaimers. You know what's what. I've given the disclaimers. So what I'm doing here is just refining the texture of the tomato. I want to get that intense red color, but I also want to get some reflections. But the reflections end up looking kind of white if I'm not careful. So it's one of those things. It's a kind of a balancing act. They're not bright white highlights. In fact, I haven't used a bright white pastel anywhere. I've used a light teal on the box. I've used a very, very pale yellow on the highlights on the yellow tomatoes, and actually a little bit on the red tomato, and I used a very, very pale blue-gray on the eggplant, because what happens here is some of our highlights are actually, it's the light bouncing off of that kind of taupey gray fabric that I have and hitting and reflecting off of the eggplant. Like if you look on the photograph of the eggplant where it's a little bit lighter, that's a reflection of the cloth onto the fruit. So that's something we have to think about too when we're talking about highlights, shadows, and then also bounced or reflected highlights. It's your surroundings that's being reflected onto the shiny surface of your subject that is going to alter the color as well. So if I had these on a yellow fabric, then we would be seeing yellow reflected on the purple eggplant and on the tomato. But we've got this gray fabric, so that's what's getting reflected. If it was white fabric, we would have much brighter reflected highlights, which you'll see, coming towards the end of the video here when I add those in. But I try to do my reflections and my highlights last because they can get muddy, especially when you're using a lighter color. Pastels are kind of like oil paints. Your light colors will muddy things up, and it's better to go dark to light than it is to go light to dark like you may in watercolor. I like to get my darks in first, no matter what medium I'm using, but it's really important when you're using an opaque media because those opaque lights will muddy things up. Like in watercolor, it's more like your warm colors tend to be a little bit more muddy, but it's because warm undertoned colors tend to be a little more opaque. I'm not sure why that is. I'm sure there's some sort of science behind it, but yeah, that's just kind of how it goes. I'm looking at the berry box, and those berry boxes I think are made by like putting a paper pulp over a mold, and they're usually not perfectly symmetrical. And I can see in the photo it doesn't look absolutely perfectly symmetrical. But I'm kind of looking at my berry box thinking it looks like the rim of the berry box and the box of the berry box are two separate entities. So I'm not actually sure if that's gonna be fixed in the end, because now that I'm watching it back, I always see these, like, hindsight is 2020. I always see little errors towards the end of it, but I think it's all right. I think maybe the bottom angle of the right-hand side of the berry box might need a little bit of a scooching up, but it's nothing. It's not a big deal. Yeah, this last step here is just kind of softening areas that need to be softened. I thought some of the white highlights were just a little too intense, and they needed to be kind of tapped down a little bit. Since I'm working flat, anytime you see me move my paper, I'm tapping it over a trash can so that I get the dust out. When I'm working on an easel, I'm working it straight vertical, or even the top edge tipped towards me a little bit so dust falls off the painting. I used a little bit of a black hard pastel to put in those really dark occlusional shadows, which are where a subject touches another object, and that's where your darkest darks are. So I did use a black for that. I didn't use a pure white anywhere, but I did use a pure black for that. And I mean, that pretty much does it. I did add a little highlight to some of the fabric there in the front to make it pop and give it texture, but that is that. If you'd like the real-time version, make sure you check the link to Critique Club in the video description. Check it out, and I'd love to see you over there if that's something that you would find value in. Thanks for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.